Thanks. Alfredo just gave my presentation, so I'll leave it. Yeah, I just, they asked, the search committee asked me to just describe my background, and so what I've put together are slides that are a bit boring because they're lists of things, but what I'll try to do is share with you the fact that in my career, what I've strived to do is basically educate myself in every organization I've been in and try to understand not only the technical aspects of these organizations, but the culture, what makes them work, and most importantly, what are the roadblocks in these organizations that stymie a very innovative group. I didn't start out that way because I started out after grad school kind of not exactly knowing the direction I'd go in. I thought I would stay in engineering, but I found the world of policy and management quite thrilling, I'll have to say. So I'll just start with my background. As Alfredo said, I started after my master's degree at the Bedford Institute of Oceanography, and much like APL, it's been in existence a long time, and there's a picture of it up here, and then it had, in the beginning, departments associated with various aspects of oceanography. I was in the group that really was associated with marine geology, but I understood the breadth of work. I learned a lot about the breadth of work there. But while I was there, I led some really important programs when I was quite young in terms of field programs associated on the east coast of Canada and in the Arctic. And those were really related to what we now call the villain world of understanding the constraints to offshore oil and gas development. So that was although we knew about global warming, that was way before we understood we had to stop doing that. I also designed programs that were important for aligning with the federal government at the time's mandates. And so that was an important aspect of what I learned there, that not only at an institution like Bedford Institute, where people started there in early days, after the work that was done in World War II, when oceanography started to really grow, there was a desire to do basic research. So in this institution, we had to really foster that and stay true to basic research, but then also ensure that we were directing that research to answer the mandates and support the federal government's activities, because Bedford Institute is a federal government laboratory. There I built 3 labs. I haven't talked to people there lately. Hopefully they're still going. One in marine geotechnical aspects, scanning electron microscope, and a sediment core processing lab. And so I was able to, early days, just get the funds, make the case to the managers to build these facilities that then allowed us to do the work we needed to do. I developed and installed systems on ships on the East Coast and in the Arctic. I led a couple of ice camps in the Beaufort Sea. And then it was at Bedford Institute, because of the ability for individuals to actually pursue their own research programs, I dived into the ocean drilling program. Canada had just joined the ocean drilling program as a partner, and because of the technical things I had built, I was asked to chair one of the technical committees that really laid out the laboratories that now are still operating. I'm sure they've been upgraded since I was working on them, on the JOIDES resolution. So for those of you who know ocean drilling, when the JOIDES resolution parks at your town's dock, it's the best lab in town. I was very proud of that work. And then I started participating in the drilling program. So I learned about the fact that international research is critical. You go out to sea for 2 months with a whole group of people from all over the world, a wide range of expertise, a wide range of levels of growth in their career, and you come off an expedition like that, as many of you know, you become a different person, you understand many things, and you understand the easy ways to collaborate, the hard ways to collaborate, how to get along at sea. So in summary, I think I learned early days about that balance between basic research and applied research, and how you have to stay true to your own research, but then assure that if you are being funded through federal government, you need to be able to deliver on that. And then I was director of the ocean drilling program at the Joint Oceanographic Institutions, and that was daunting. I jumped right in, and I was then learning much about running a very large program. At the time, it was $56 million per year. most of the work, of course, was done by subcontractors. So I learned about the contractual arrangements, the risks, the benefits, how to actually navigate using funding instruments like cooperative agreements, and then managing big sum awards to major universities. I also kept my feet into the science side, of course, continuing to upgrade the systems on the ship. And also, I was really proud to actually begin the new area of subsea floor biosphere that then took off in the drilling program. For those who don't know, subsea floor sediment, the thought was that life only existed in the upper few meters of the seafloor. And so when we began instituting this new area of research, it was clear that the life, it lives very deep in the ocean floor. And that's been a part of the big success of the ocean drilling program. And then my work also engaged and coordinated with the U.S. Science community, because as part of my role was to coordinate the U.S. Science Support Program, the scientific people who sailed on the ship, getting them grants, ensuring that they had the money they needed to do the work that was the research post-cruise, and also coordinating with other international organizations that supported scientists on the drill ship. I had the opportunity a couple times to present to the National Science Board, which was really eye-opening, understanding the way that the decisions are made at the National Science Foundation was really interesting to me. And I think it helped me to understand that some of these structures are quite robust, and the ways that individual scientists and leaders can actually influence that kind of direction exists. And so taking advantage and understanding those kind of, I'll call them bureaucratic structures, really help to advance what you want to achieve as a goal. I then moved to the University of Rhode Island. I had a few other things I did in the meantime, like I helped set up a research program that was associated with funds in Canada that came from the offshore oil and gas sector. They were mandated to provide funds for research. So in that world, there's not many people who set up research programs. So I set up a structure to fund research that came in from the revenues associated with the mandated money from oil and gas in Canada. But then I had the opportunity to go to the University of Rhode Island, where I did my master's degree, and I joined as an associate professor, and that was my first time in academia. And so I went, holy, you know what? This is a whole different world. And so that's the first thing. I began to understand academia, and I kind of kicked myself for accepting a joint appointment for the Graduate School of Oceanography and Ocean Engineering, because I had two bosses and two committees to demonstrate that I deserved tenure. And so I was like, oh, I always advise people now, don't do that. Pick one faculty. And I continued for several years while I was, before I went to Rhode Island, I was working with my co-person in crime in terms of the Arctic, Jan Bachman at Stockholm University. We had been proposing and planning the first Arctic drilling program in the Central Arctic Ocean. And it was a lot of work. We had to first convince people that we could technologically do it. We had to make sure that the science was sound with revisions of proposals. We had to figure out ways to get seismic data to actually demonstrate that it was safe to drill in these locations. And then it all came together when I was at the University of Rhode Island, and it was the beginning of the next phase of ocean drilling. And it was one of the most interesting projects I've ever done, because of the fact that we had to do everything, because it was a new kind of drilling. We had to go to Finland and stay up late drinking with icebreaker captains. And I mean, so it was the whole gamut. It's not just paying the money to get the drilling done, and pick the science team, and then continue to go advocate for people to participate. And I just want to share an anecdote at Lamont, when Jan and I were there, we had just been given the go-ahead to really plan this thing. And it was in a room like this, and a little more people, and we presented it, and a couple people in the back just stood up and said, "That will never work." And that made us quite nervous. But we did. We went there. We had 3 ships, 2 big icebreakers, a Russian icebreaker, a Swedish icebreaker, and then we had to modify another ship with a drilling system on board. And I just remember very vividly when we were drilling at the first site, and I was thinking, it was a lot of money, and it's probably a lot less money than what you bring in here, but it was a lot of money. And I was thinking, I hope this works, because my mother will be so disappointed. But anyway, it worked. It was a lot of struggle, and it worked, and we recovered one of the most amazing paleoclimate records ever. And so there's a lot. I have a whole presentation about that. At Rhode Island, then I also worked with many others, but we actually changed the gender balance in a pretty significant way in one fell swoop. And that was with the help of the provost and the dean, who saw the benefits of diversity. And then I was appointed to be Associate Dean for Research and Administration, and including being a professor, and that was a half-time position for running the endeavor, constructing a new building for Bob Ballard, who is, for those of you who know Bob, he's quite an interesting person to be beholden to. And a new administration facility, that all were finished before I left to go to Washington. I was one of the persons that started to invite the offshore wind community to Rhode Island, because there was a need in the state, there was a need to get Block Island off of diesel. And I started that initiative with funds from the governor, but many others took off, and it became the first offshore wind farm in the United States. And then I oversaw the research office, which was not hard to do, because like here, incredibly successful faculty, grad students, postdocs who knew how to write proposals and get funding. I was just there to help make that happen smoothly. And then overseeing the facilities and, of course, space. And I guess before COVID, we all know that space on campus is like the war zone. But anyway, I learned a lot about academia, so I understand that world. And I learned to basically accept it, because it's a really wonderful place. There's lots of different kind of aspects of it that cause people angst, but it's where the innovation really can happen. So I took a turn and was appointed as a secondment from Rhode Island to the Office of Science and Technology Policy. Just need to take a sip. And I was there to actually try to raise the profile, mainly Arctic research in that office. And it was because it had been taking a second tier in the United States across most of the federal departments. And then along with that, it was looking after the Antarctic science research. I also helped others support the ocean and climate policy portfolios while I was there. So I kicked off the major review of the U.S. Antarctic program, the previous one. I think that was quite successful. It helped with some upgrades at McMurdo, and I think at the North Pole. I wasn't there to finish it off, but I was helped to set up the external review panel. But most importantly for the Arctic, believe it or not, I crafted this memorandum, which is, I think, 2 paragraphs long, and it took probably 6 months through multiple lawyers so that the president could sign it. But it really just took Arctic programs in the United States and lifted it up into the White House portfolio. And so that then elevated it for funders in the profile. And so what I learned there is that policy can really rule the world. And even if it takes you 6 months for 2 paragraphs, it is truly worth it. So I'm really proud of that. And that has, I think, continued to help raise the profile of Arctic research. I hope that some of you here in the Arctic work, you do have benefit from that. And then I supported with others John Holdren's QFR's Questions for the Record from Congress, mainly associated with climate change. And that was one of the reasons I didn't stay for another 2 years, because the questions for the record were just stupid from Congress. And we were just tired of saying the same thing, that, it's not natural cycles. It was just, I don't know how John did it, but he went there every time and answered those questions. And I engaged with the National Oceanographic Community on the Deepwater Horizon. When that happened, Jerry Miller, who I worked with there, and I organized within like 4 days a meeting at the EPA headquarters and invited every oceanographic institution there to say, okay, what can you provide to help deal with this emergency? And I think 500 people showed up. It was truly remarkable to see the academic community in the United States step up like that. But more importantly, I learned in a policy shop, you have to write, as I said, these short paragraphs that don't have extra words, that have a lot of content. And I had learned that by the time the Deepwater Horizon happened. So I started, and I know drilling, so it was like, duh. So I started writing these short paragraphs about, don't do that. I think, and I would write them more politely, but I don't think they should do that, because if they do that, they're going to form hydrates and it's going to plug it. And so I would write these very short, and they would go up to John Holdren, and I just kept writing them. Finally, John Holdren called me into the office and said, Secretary Chu needs you on this team to make decisions about how to stop the flow of oil. And I said, I'm there. And so it was really interesting. And not to say that I was the one who made the important decisions, but really what I was for the other people on Secretary Chu's team were some of them were Nobel physicists. I was a little bit intimidated by that, but they really, what I found out was they really needed me because I could translate the diagrams. What's a BOP? What's a casing string? What's that material? And so it was really giving them the information. And together I did provide some guidance on several things, but it was the understanding they needed someone like me to explain what the heck they were looking at and why the words in the oil and gas sector are so strange, So all in all, I didn't spend there a long time, but I learned so much. And I think it's really helped me, now that I've been in Canada for a long time, to really dig into understanding the policy levers. Because with the policy levers and the technical know-how, you can really make change. I'll just anecdotally say that since I've been in Canada, I've been really appreciating this particular office in the United States. And that's because in Canada, it's a policy haven. People love policy in Canada, which is great. It's like, and they have good policy. It's really, really good policy. But the way the policy evolves is people get trained in public administration, and then they go be policy advisors associated with science and technology. And that's a heavy lift. This office, has some policy people, but it has scientists and engineers and technologists in this office who learn policy. And I think that reverse approach is really innovative in the United States. So I always say that to the Canadians. They haven't listened to me yet, but I keep trying. So then I had an interview. I was just like this. I was surprised to be asked to be interviewed, but I got interviewed to be the director of Neptune Canada. And I went for an interview, and I was flying back to Washington, and I was in the cab, and the Friday radio show, I forget what it's called on NPR, Science Friday was on, and I'm in the cab, and remarkably, a cab driver was listening to Science Friday, and John Holdren was on, and it was like, oh, no, I'll listen to this, it's John Holdren. I reported to John Holdren. And the question to him was, among all the science that you are overseeing in the United States, what's the most important right now? And he said, on the radio, while I'm in the taxi, coming from this interview, observing the Earth. I'm going, gosh, I just went to an interview where I could be helping to observe the Earth. And so I said to myself in that cab, if I get offered this job, I'm going to take it. So that's how I got to return back to Canada. So we're now one thing, Ocean Networks Canada, it includes both the Neptune and the Venus Observatory. And this is when I got there, this is what we had. So those of you probably know this because you're here on this map, but it's the Neptune Cable Observatory that was installed in 2009. 2006, there were 2 cables, one in Saanich Inlet, one in the Strait of Georgia. And so it was very similar to OOI in terms of the installation, but it happened earlier just because that the funding cycle in Canada for this installation, even though John Delaney and others here were really early advocates of this, it was just the circumstances of the funding cycle in Canada allowed this to happen first. So this is what it was, and I learned a lot. I didn't know about this kind of ocean observing and all the sensor systems. And by the way, just this morning, I learned a whole lot more in like the hour and a half I visited Henderson Hall. But a lot of those sensor systems we have at Neptune are similar, or we deploy some of the similar kind of sensor systems. This is what it is now in terms of Ocean Networks Canada. The circle is there on the bottom left. And we haven't deployed big infrastructure like Neptune and Venus around the whole coast of Canada, but we've been deploying and partnering mainly with Indigenous coastal communities to provide them technology to actually observe their own oceanfront yard. And so I'll just anecdotally tell you how it started. When I arrived in Canada, it was you probably don't know this person's name, but Stephen Harper was the Prime Minister. And he had, like 3 years earlier, made this commitment to install a science station in Cambridge Bay, Nunavut. And so I got there, and I said, "Where's the Cambridge Bay, Nunavut science lab?" And they were going, "There is none." So I said to our team, "Let's just go put something up there." So I arrived in September. By August the next year, we had a very small cabled observatory in Cambridge Bay, Nunavut. And we were totally arrogant about it. We just thought, okay, let's see if our technology works in ice and if we can deliver data over satellite and all that. So our arrogance was obscene. So we installed it, and there's a company on Vancouver Island that builds sea ice thickness sensors. We said, let's throw one of those on there. And the town said, we want to see those data in the co-op store because we need to know the ice thickness when we take a trip from the town to the shortcut to the airport or out to hunt. And so that's when we thought, we got to take away this arrogance we have, and we started to think about providing technology to these communities and talk with them first about what they need. So we've been having, it's slow, it's fast for some communities, it's slow for others, and we now have a whole team of Indigenous and coastal community people that actually install, monitor, build data products, and deliver data for these communities. So I'm really proud of that expansion. We hope to actually have bigger expansions going forward. And then in the middle is Oceans 3, so we've been advancing the data system. It's all open data. And like here, we're trying to move in the area of AI and using the data for a wide variety of data products. So the other, we're somewhat different than OOI because we're funded to not only provide sensor systems for scientific research, we're funded to also provide what's called broader benefits to Canada. And I've interpreted that as to use this infrastructure to its maximum. So you can't really read these, but I'll just read some of them. So for example, we got additional funds to install earthquake early warning. So we have now an earthquake early warning system, sensors offshore and onshore that were developed for the benefit of the public. We have systems now for better understanding noise and noise products, and there's we could learn from the acousticians here, I'm sure, in terms of developing better products. And we are developing products for marine safety, especially with Transport Canada. So we're trying to make sure that the data are used to its maximum. And also we want to ensure that, I think like here, which is done probably much more robustly, we want to ensure that sustainable ocean industries can use our infrastructure to become more successful, develop better sensor systems, and then get them to market. So we develop our data, this is our data system. We release a new version of it every month, and it has a wide variety of tools. One of the ones that we're real proud of is a C-tube, which we capture all the video data. That's all available. It has wonderful annotation tools. NOAA now uses it for their annotation of their Okeanos Explorer and ROVs. But if you haven't used our data or are interested, just go there. And we have a whole team of staff scientists who can help navigate places, because it's not exactly the smoothest system, but we have people who can help you immediately if you need to do that. And so this is just another map of the indigenous communities that we work with. I was going to say something else, but I'll stop there. And in addition to the commitment to the communities themselves, we're taking a leadership role in Canada to actually inject into our metadata biocultural labels. And so we have a plan that's been already developed. We're starting to implement it. It'll take time because each indigenous community will want to have their data, metadata labeled in ways that are important for them. So we're going to be championing this, and I think this is something that can be shared here because of the interest in working with indigenous communities here. As a not-for-profit, we're an organization, so this is the analogy to APL, although not exactly. We're an organization that is a non-profit owned by the University of Victoria, but we're separate. And I was just talking about how sometimes the systems in the university don't quite fit with the systems of this external thing. But what I've been helping build is really strong governance and documents, I'll just call them that, documents that help us move in a direction that makes sense for the team of people. And so this is just a triangle that shows you that we have, I'll show on the next slide, I have been part of, we're now working, we've completed our second strategic plan, which is a really good one. And it's allowed us to use that and use it through the whole organization. It identifies our strategies that deliver for science, for society, and for industry. It then has been used to influence how we write proposals to external funders, but our major funder, because we operate infrastructure. And that really has helped us really make sure it's really clear. And the clarity in which that proposal is written, the last one we wrote, we had an independent panel review it, and a few of them just said it was really a pleasure to read, which you don't ever get from a proposal. So I think that meant that, to me, that meant that when we got the strategic plan right, the communication associated that flowed through what we wanted to propose to do was understandable. And then, of course, annually we develop a program plan where we outline in great detail everything we're going to do, we hope to do, and that then helps us to continue to improve and become better. So that's how I think that we've come to a good place in terms of government and management. It's in a good, strong state at the moment. So I'll just summarize some of the things that I'm proud of at ONC. I've been leading this nonprofit, and I report directly to a board of directors, which is something that's, it's important to pay close attention. That's usually a volunteer group who provide important guidance across everything, finance, industry, science. In the beginning of when I took over, I was asked to, and I thought it was a good idea, to restructure so that we could deliver on the multiple mandates of Ocean Networks Canada. As I mentioned, I've led 2 strategic plans. We're now using very successfully the second one. I have to deliver on a management agreement with the University of Victoria. So we have a formal agreement with the university. Who's doing what? How do we work together? So I continue to have to work on managing that aspect of the relationship, which goes up and down depending on who's mad about the press release or who wants to get something through purchasing faster. The staff, I guess people get that one. Yeah. I hired the best, the highest ranking person in the research finance office at the university. made all the difference. The staff has grown to now about 160 people because we have actually grown, as you saw on the map, what we're doing, not only in terms of the sensor systems and data, but in terms of engagement. And we was able to succeed in the funding cycles and increase the funding. We're now Canada's largest major science initiative. That's lingo for research infrastructure. And in terms of, because of the fact that we build systems now, we mostly purchase off the shelf sensor systems and we don't tear, like I heard this morning, you tear out guts of things physically and rebuild them. We just tear out the data side of it, the drivers, and we build all that because it's real time. but because we do that, there's been new legislation in British Columbia that is very strict about engineering design and the responsibility for that design. And so I moved our organization into an organization that has essentially a formal permit to practice under British Columbia Engineering Association. We've been expanding the science disciplines. Our latest expansion is into high energy particle physics. We're building a neutrino array with a whole team of international scientists. And as I mentioned in the strategic plan, I won't repeat that, expanding the stakeholders. But one of the aspects that I think is the same as here is aligning the goals or the research that you propose to your funders to align with the federal departments. And here, as the structure in, one of your major stakeholders is a broad range of entities in the defense world of the United States. And of course, given the success I've read online in your annual reports, you've been doing that quite well. It seems like you're aligning quite well, the message is getting through. And that's, as I learned in the first meeting this morning, that you have a very distributed research organization with very strong departments that really run the research programs. And that, to me, is also a credit to, I would have to guess, the culture. Because that's a very distributed system, and you're having great success. And whoever has established that, I think that kind of culture enables departments to work together, sharing information, deciding we're going to do this on our own without mayhem. So I just want to, that's an observation. It's a very early observation I had from this morning. And then I built the National Indigenous Community, and we have been, over the past 4 years now, engaged in, we call it ED, we switched the letters in Canada for some reason, EDI, which has been really accepted broadly from the board, our board of directors, our management team, and staff. And we've been able to, although we can't track diversity because of privacy, but we can track gender. And we're now at 45% female in the organization. So I've learned a lot of different things. It's a different world. I don't want to tell you about Canada politics, but in Canada, it's such a small village. I sometimes get to talk to the Prime Minister. So, I mean, it blows my mind, but it's just because it's small, not because I'm that special. So I'm going to first apologize, because how could I provide a vision, because I didn't really understand the organization. I have, just from this morning, I have a better vision. But I'll share I wrote some of this when I was proposing, but I do still think that climate change is a defining moment. I won't read this all out to you, you know it. But I think it's a defining moment, not only because from the oceanographic research community broadly, there's a keen understanding of it. And at the Ocean Sciences meeting 2 weeks ago, it was clear there was a lot of research being showcased in terms of climate change. But I also think it's important because actually when I was in Washington a long time ago is when the Arctic part, and I forget the group, it was a guy who subsequently became administrator of NOAA, started to focus on the Arctic in terms of climate change for the military. So that was a long time ago. And now I understand from the President Biden's executive order, the Department of the Navy has been moving forward with work that needs to be done for protecting security associated with climate change. So I think it spans the world of research. It even expands it and combines the oceanographic issues associated with climate change with the security and the understanding of the presence of whatever's in the ocean together. So I still think that's important. But I have to say, I learned that you've been working on your strategic plan. So I'm just apologizing because I'm jumping in here with a vision really is done by everybody together, but here goes. I think the vision should clearly support the growth of the applied science and technology research here within and across the departments in this University Affiliated Research Center. It's clear that you've been successful there, but it's possible that there will be more problems thrown at you that are related to climate, whether it's renewable energy, infrastructure that's operated by the Defense Department, ways to mitigate climate, ways to adapt to climate. Those are all probably still going to be growing in the portfolio associated with the university-affiliated research centers, I would guess. And because you're an international leader in ocean and Arctic science and technology, and it really stems from the decade of building this expertise, I was able to see, was it the first AUV that was ever built in the lab? You know how to build things. I saw the, I guess it's the boat that looks like you're having a concert. Was kind of a cool thing this morning. And the way you have done technology transfers that don't necessarily go immediately to production, but go to some level of high use for your stakeholders, that should continue, and it could be focused and become a leader in the ocean-based acceleration of these applied climate solutions. So again, with apologies, that's my take on the early understanding of this organization. So I think you have a lot of strengths, and I've seen them. I don't want to read these out. You know them. You lead ocean. You can be leading ocean-related acceleration of climate action and solutions, aligned, as I said, to the Department of the Navy's climate change portfolio. But it's clear that the second bullet is what you've been doing well, and that has to continue because clearly the world is not safer than it was 10 years ago. But they could be working together in terms of those solutions. And then again, it could also enhance working with UW to enhance the university's mission in these areas. I think the field experience you have allows these experiments and what you develop, whether it's for climate or security or situational awareness, you have the capacity to continue to be the place to go for getting things in real ocean environments. I've read in your reports you have been doing broader benefits with communities, education. I heard this morning about the wonderful ways that you're bringing undergraduates and graduate students up through the system and training them. Those are all wonderful broader benefits. And I think that we could all together as organizations that work in this field do more broader benefits in terms of knowledge transfer basically to the public and to the mid-level bureaucrats who are in the trenches. As I already talked about your culture, I think you seem to have a great culture here that can enable you to take what you build here and do and apply it to other sectors, which you've already demonstrated by moving into the health sector. There's probably many other ways that you could be doing that. But it's that innovation culture that allows you to go, oh yeah, that thing I do in the ocean could be applied to this widget in another place. And I think that your existing commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion will just strengthen the culture and grow productivity. That's what I've seen in terms of EDI. So here's some things I think you might consider. It would be good to have a strategic plan with goals, but with the recognition that you have a very diversified and distributed structure. I've always found it beneficial to really clearly define the stakeholders, and I'm sure you're doing that on every proposal and every engagement you have with multiple departments, but sometimes in a strategic plan it's good to write that down and have those expectations understood. Of course, you know full well you go through risk-benefit assessments and also assessment of the need for organizational structure change or cultural change. With your success, that might not be something that's needed, but it's worth taking a look at. Purposeful plan for leadership opportunities. I just saw good examples of that already. It's good to have that documented so that anyone coming in or new can see, here's how I can participate in seeing young faculty and young researchers come in and take steps to move up and have their own research programs. I didn't hear much about, there was a lot of data I heard about this morning. Do you need to be investing in data and research data? I know in different research departments you have data, but it may be something to focus on. And investments in knowledge mobilization and communication, that's really part of the broader benefits. But knowledge mobilization, it's a lingo in Canada, I don't know if it's the same here, but it's really taking what you do, translating it, communicating it into a wide range of people, which is hard to do in this noisy world of communication. But if you do it well, you can make a huge difference. And what I've seen so far online and the products you have already, you have the capacity to do it very well. So I'll stop there. Thank you very much for your time.